Yeah, no, I know. I wasn't. No, I wasn't. That's my master's which is it's another program. So yeah, there's yes, hopefully. Unless the government shut down, 5 months ago. So we've got to shut down 5 months ago. Yeah, you're right. Then it shows up to 2 months. Yeah, exactly. You just hit the reset button. Let's see, Colorado. You missed out. That's the problem about Colorado. Today I go there. Sunny highs, and the next day it was snowy. And I think people were glad I was there.
Good morning. Welcome to First Church. It's a pleasure to be in worship with you, especially after last week. I thank you for allowing me to have that time. I will be sharing about that experience in a little bit. I want to share with you some information and some announcements about what's happening here at First. If you have not had a chance to do so already, please fill out the red pen. Next Sunday is a particularly important Sunday. It is the Sunday that we will be coming together in worship with the Korean Fellowship as we celebrate the merger between the two congregations. There will be a special charge conference immediately after the 10 o'clock service where this vote will be taken. We will also be voting on one other matter, which is slightly old business, but still in the works. Many of you know, as we reported a year ago, that we would be installing solar panels in our parking lot. It too needs to get approved at Charge Conference, and so we will be taking a vote on that also next week. A little bit, I mean, we all knew it was coming, and so we just need for us to be able to vote. So I encourage your participation in it. On that same day, next Sunday, I will be on the plane in the evening, headed for Kansas, and I will be arriving there just past midnight as 600 delegates from our U.S. annual conferences gather to pray and discern what our next steps are as the United Methodist Church, especially because of what happened at special general conference this past spring, and in light of the actual general conference that will be taking place next year. We need your prayers. It is the only way that we have moved thus far. And so I ask you to hold us in prayer at that time. You know from our memo, from our bulletin, that we are taking names of those who are interested in a pilgrimage to the Holy Land during the season of Lent in the year 2021. We need a minimum head count before we can plan, and so we are asking for those who are interested before we move ahead with our schedule. There are a couple of important dates in June as well. You all know that we have our annual conference. It will be in the Mesa Community Center, Convention Center, from the 12th to the 16th, which also means that that Sunday is Laity Sunday, led by the lay for the lay, with lay speakers. Although we won't actually have our official lay speaker, who is Anita Zane, she will be with us at the annual conference. You will have an opportunity to hear from her the following week when the lay representatives will be giving reports. Please pray for that conference as well. One of the things that they will be doing at this conference, at our annual conference, is selecting the delegates who we will be sending to jurisdictional conference next year, who will be voting on our new bishops. We don't know how many. There might be as few as one or as many as three, but our delegates from our annual conference will be in that process, both lay and clergy. So please pray for that. I feel like today you will have also an opportunity. We want to celebrate that. Where is she? She's somewhere. Lindsay Lee, our music director, celebrated her graduation. She graduated with Doctors of Musical Arts and Conducting. She will be in her row, which is appropriate. If you go to the East Cushion and the churches, they are all in their row, and she finally gets to wear one of her own. Don't think of it off as a marvel time to really share our Thanksgiving and appreciation for her. Would you rise as you are able to and pass the truth of Christ? What's your name? Please be sure to keep your mind.
Good morning. My name is Holly, and please join me in this morning's call to worship.
Hi, Carol.
Oh wait, rise up.
There is much to be done in the Lord's name today.
Get ready to worship and to serve God.
We are ready to hear God's word for us and to respond in action and love.
Open your hearts to God's will this day.
Praise be to God who walks with us and guides us. Christ is risen, celebrate this day of faith. Christ is risen, worship one another, all creation is Christ is risen nevermore shall we ascend. Break the bread of new creation, where the Lord is still within. Morning chorus, Christ is risen.
Holy One, with joy we come this day to the house of the Lord. You provide us abundantly, even when we doubt and fear, even when we turn away. You are faithful. Open our hearts today, O Lord, to hear your word for us, that we may become faithful disciples of our Lord all our days. Amen. The first scripture reading this morning comes from Psalm chapter 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. The second scripture reading this morning comes from the book of Acts, chapter 9, verses 36 through 43. Now in Joppa there was a disciple whose name was Tabitha, which in Greek is Dorcas. She was devoted to good works and acts of charity. At that time she became ill and died. When they had washed her, they laid her in a room upstairs. Since Lydda was near Joppa, the disciples, who heard that Peter was there, sent 2 men to him with the request, "Please come to us without delay." So Peter got up and went with them, and when he arrived, they took him to the room upstairs. All the widows stood beside him, weeping and showing tunics and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was with them. Peter put all of them outside, and then he knelt down and prayed. He turned to the body and said, "Tabitha, get up." Then she opened her eyes, and seeing Peter, she sat up. He gave her his hand and helped her up. Then calling the saints and widows, he showed her to be alive. This became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Meanwhile, he stayed in Joppa for some time with a certain Simon, a tanner. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
We're going to invite our children to teach with us.
Almost forgot what you taught me. Good morning, guys. Hey, I have something very, very special for you to do, Nathan and Amber. Yes. You see all those ladies out there? See all those ladies? They're moms and grandmas, and sometimes they're moms to other people, even if they don't have a child of their own. But they've been moms to a lot of people, we know that. So we're going to honor them this morning and give them flowers. Okay, and I need your help. Okay, will you do that for me? Okay, we're going to go along. Happy Mother's Day! kids are gonna do a flower. I know there's a tradition of white flowers if your mom's still living, or red if your mom is not. But we're not following that tradition. Today, the flowers are for all of you ladies, honoring you.
Mother's Day.
Yes.
He's going to start the sermon.
Huge. Yeah, we're coming to you. We have not forgotten you. The time that you allow for my children to be here on Sundays is in a way how you make yourself his mother church, her mother church, when they think of their home church, the church that nurtures them. I am so honored it will be you, beautiful people. I have a Mother's Day story to share, but that will come later. So you'll have to wait. Today is Christ the Shepherd Sunday. Even though the lectionary, the standard writings for Sundays, they cycle through different gospel lessons every 3 years, going through the entire Bible. Every year on this Sunday, no matter what cycle you are in, we always read from Psalm 23. There's a certain image of Jesus as our good shepherd that I think is good for our soul. Many find peace and comfort in knowing that the character of Jesus Christ is one that leads us to places of rest on green pastures and sanctuaries of renewal beside still waters. It is likely one of the reasons we were all led to be in worship this morning. There's also another character of our Good Shepherd, one that I find personally even more compelling. And that is that Jesus is our Good Shepherd who guides us with his gentle staff and guards us from the enemy with his strengthening arm. So much so is God's protection over us that even if we should walk in the midst of the shadows of life, the Lord is able to prepare a banquet for us. How might Christ the Shepherd be leading us through the valley of the shadow of death this morning? We are in the book of Acts as Luke continues to write the events of the disciples after Jesus' resurrection. And today, in chapter 9, we find Peter in the town of Lydda. Lydda is a town on the west side, on the west of the mountain range, which Jerusalem sits on top of. It is known as the places of the fertile plains, and it seems that people's hearts were also fertile as they became very receptive of Peter's ministry there, many coming to believe in Jesus. And not far from this place was the coastal city of Joppa, a port off the Mediterranean Sea. It was no more than 10 miles away. You can imagine people traveling from Jerusalem to Joppa by way of Lydda. I don't know which one is the correct pronunciation actually. It's the most direct route. And so we understand how the people in Joppa came to hear about Peter's ministry in the town not too far away. In this city of Joppa was a woman, a disciple of Christ by the name of Tabitha or Dorcas. This name means gazelle, and like the gazelle, Tabitha was energetic and also graceful. Luke writes specifically that Tabitha was always doing good and helping the poor. And of course, we read that Tabitha became ill and died. Widows came to mourn her death. In particular, we find these widows who, after meeting Peter, began to show them their robes and other garments to show Peter what kind of help Tabitha had been for them. And I think you have to understand the context to really feel and understand the gravity of what they were trying to express. You already know that this was a society where women were marginalized to begin with, widows extremely so. A woman's access to society was through their fathers or their husbands. And after a certain age, even the father would no longer be able to serve this role, even if he were still alive, because he was an elder. There was tremendous pressure, therefore, for the daughters to get married. That pressure has not seemed to dissipate after 2,000 years. When a husband passed, then this cut their access to land. Land was only passed down through the male line. It cut their access to monetary resources and so many things that we might take for granted now. Tabitha gave alms and served these widows, perhaps one of the most marginalized people of her time. And her help was so great that the widows approached Peter to show him of her works. We're talking about a society where women did not talk to men unless they were spoken to. We're talking about a society when widows talking to men, even when the men initiated the conversation, was frowned upon. Even more so when our scripture described the widow showing Peter the other garments that Tabitha made for them. That's a code word. It means inner wear, underwear. The widows were showing Peter their underwear. That's taboo even now, 2,000 years later. So in context, it shows just what kind of disciple Tabitha was. She was helpful, not just with words, but in her action. She took care of the marginalized. She gave these widows a sense of dignity in not only giving them new clothes, but also providing for them their inner wear. Sometimes, the most basic things are the ones that we find most difficult asking for. And Tabitha knew this and served this. You've probably experienced that before. How many of you guys have experienced how it's so much easier to talk about peripheral things and really not talk about the basic needs? I don't know how many times on Sundays we come with this really deep longing for community, and we end up talking about the weather or what happened with the sports, and we leave feeling slightly empty because we didn't actually talk about what was most vulnerable. And even if you don't experience that, you have all experienced the carpool for extended journeys and the pain and agony of holding your biological need to rid of solids and fluids. And it's so difficult to tell. You just hold. You relate? I hope you do. So, a mother's story. A love story about my mom. I had to pray just 5 minutes before service to decide whether or not I was really going to tell this story. As in, don't tell people afterwards, even though it's my birthday. As a teen, our church had 3 Sunday services. Each had their own choir, and I was a member of the first services choir. It was the smallest choir of the 3 services, and so each participant, each member's role was very important. And on one Sunday morning, I felt the need to go. But it was just a brief moment. You know how they come and go, and the thought left my mind. In any case, my focus was on singing the anthem and doing my part well. After the anthem, which was time for the message, my father would approach the pulpit, and normally he would pray before the message was given. It would serve as a good opportunity for people to move about as needed without disrupting the people so much. So I waited for Dad to start praying so I could break for the bathroom. But alas, this morning, he went straight into the message. Now, our choir seats, you have to understand, we were in a tight space. The choir pews were so close that our knees would touch the pew in front of us, and they were elevated right off to the side of the pulpit. So the highest row in the back was even at seated position was higher than the pastor, and not just because my dad is of short stature. Yes, I just said my dad was short. So I was sitting on the far end of the pew. I either had to walk towards the back door, make everyone in my choir row stand up so I can walk past, or I had to walk down directly in front of the pulpit and head back. Right at the time when the entire congregation was paying attention, this is why they had come, to hear the pastor speak. The live video feed that goes to the nursery was focused right here. They zoom in close for that shot, and I would have to walk right in front. Should I go? No. I would cause too much of a distraction. Either way, I mean, crossing in front, that's, can't do that. Going back still, that's a big group of people, men standing up so I can cross. What's worse, that as a pastor's kid, everything I did was always amplified. PKs know this, but I'll just say, for any good thing that I did, like if I would share something, people applauded and loved it. Like, of course you're the pastor's son. Of course you would be such a gentle and nice guy. The opposite was also true. If I did even the smallest of mistakes, how could the pastor's son of all the kids do that? And so it was, I dared not move. I dared not go to the bathroom, and I held, and it was painful, and it was beyond agonizing. I remember talking to Jesus that morning. I remember praying, Jesus, help me. I am literally picking up the cross, sitting here, painfully waiting so that I do not disturb one of these poor souls from hearing your word. Strengthen me, like actually strengthen me. I told you this was my mother's love story, yes? I somehow miraculously held for 40 minutes for that sermon to end, and as soon as my father ended his message, and at the beginning of his prayer, I signaled to the choir and I left. I walked to the bathroom stall, but somehow, you know how your brain moves faster than your body does, and it must have been a sense of relief as I entered into the bathroom. I had an accident just a moment too soon. I pooped my pants. I didn't know what to do. I took off my pants because I couldn't wear them. I tried to clean myself. I couldn't throw away my clothes because I didn't want to get caught. And my mom was always telling me to take care of my clothes. So I walked back home with my choir robe on behind my nose. with my choir robe on, half naked, my soiled pants rolled up, tucked under my arm, my head down so that I don't meet any of the church members walking the other way for the second service, and I cried miserably every step home. My mother was home. She was getting ready to attend the second service, which was what she normally did. She was surprised to see me. One, I was home way too early. Two, I was wearing the choir robe. Three, I was crying. And four, I told her the story and how miserable it was to be a pastor's kid. You're laughing, right? I took a shower, felt refreshed, and when I came out, I saw my mother in full Sunday makeup and dress, hand washing my soiled pants. My mom who literally cleaned up my crap. That night, still very upset, traumatized by the experience, told off on Dad how he forgot to pray before the message, and how his lack of prayer really made a mess of myself. And my father kind of responded in disbelief, simply said, "Oh, if it was that bad, you should have just gone." And my mother, knowing how conflicted I had been, not just the physical pain, but that emotional, mental pain of trying not to dishonor my dad and be an obedient son, she stood up for me and tried to defend me to my dad to make him make sense. This is far beyond reasonable what you should expect of your child. I remember her this morning on Mother's Day. And it's the kind of heart I see in Tabitha. She took care of the widow's most basic needs, far beyond what we would consider just, oh yeah, they need clothing. No. Do you know that they need not just clothing? Providing them with other garments too. And you can understand the feeling of their loss when Tabitha grew ill and died. She had been such great help. Words couldn't fully describe what she had done. They called for Peter. Maybe they were expecting Peter simply to comfort them. Perhaps for Peter to offer special prayers for her because she certainly deserved them. But Peter, in seeing all of this, called out to Tabitha, "Rise, get up!" And just like in the ways how Jesus spoke to Lazarus to come out, or the synagogue leader Jairus' daughter, Talitha kum, little girl, get up. Peter emulated these words. Tabitha was resuscitated. And they gathered around her, saw her, and believed. When I think about Tabitha, I cannot help see the church in her. The church, like her, feels weak, ill, unable to do what it once had done. Some may even think that the church is already dead or dying. What shall come of the United Methodist Church? What shall come of First Church? Last week we announced the upcoming merger vote next week. The finalization of it. And though to me it speaks of the courage that we have to move forward and to recognize the beauty in our diversity, I also recognize that some do not feel this is the right way forward. Some feel like this is the first sign of our demise. Some feel like the merger is already an indicator of what is ahead. Some may indeed feel quite critical of it all. I want you to know that I hear you and I appreciate your insight because those voices and those concerns are what makes us a vibrant community. I am absolutely certain that while it is very comforting to be around like-minded people in the short term, in the long run, it will be our demise if we do not dialogue with those beyond our comfort zones. And so I appreciate all of your concerns. Now, the church, our denomination, may feel as if we will continue to decline and finally close, but I must say we must consider those who are looking at the church, those in our marginalized communities, still hopes in the church, in God alive, through the body of Christ that is the church. Last week I attended the Progressive Asian American Christian Conference. What is that? Well, you can take the obvious ethnic demographic of this group, but it's a conference for those of us who felt left in the margins of the church, many who had been hurt by the church many times over because of our theological differences, because of the differences in our understanding of social norms, because we were queer or queer allies, because we were educated women, because we were darker in our complexion, because of our differences in who we believe can and should lead the church. These were all reasons we were marginalized. And the group itself, very diverse, not all of one accord, but generally speaking, we felt as if we had been set aside by the dominant Asian churches for many reasons. And you would think that this group of people who had gathered, sharing their hurt, the pain, the agony that they had gone through, the wrongdoing of the church that is dominant in our culture, that they wanted the church to be in its demise, for it to close. And yet, even still, in that group, we still longed for a church. We were having church. Not intentionally, but unintentionally, we began making those connections, praising God, worshiping with one another, seeing each other for the beauty that God created us in. That group desired for a church to be vital, to be healthy, to be life-giving, and love-bearing. And it seemed to me there and here in our community, as I meet strangers weekly as they come through our office doors asking for aid, this world desperately needs this church. They certainly want the church to change. After all, if we are truly reconciling, we must first recognize what harm we have knowingly and unknowingly participated in and account for them. They may want the church to change, but for the church to be in its demise, no. They need the church. Just this past week, our Tucson City Council representative placed out a call for churches like ours to serve the increasing needs of our asylum-seeking migrants. The world needs Christ's body alive and active in their midst. So get up and rise. When I think about Tabitha, for her multitude of acts of discipleship, it may have been better in her interest to be with God after she had passed. Maybe. What I do know that when she was brought back, she was essentially brought back so that she may continue that service of others. She was resuscitated from death, not for her own sake, but for the sake of others. And that is still true to this day for us as well. We shall rise, not only serve ourselves, but those in need. And this is the Easter message. Jesus died for our sake and was resurrected. He rose. We rise. Jesus rose so that he might reconcile with us. Our mothers constantly rose to make things right for us. And so let us rise from our doom and gloom once more, always, so that we may continue aiding and providing for those in need, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Let us get up and rise from our desk so that those on the sidelines may have Christ's love abounding in their blessed lives. Amen. Join me in this moment of silence as we reflect upon His words. If you feel led by the Spirit, please join in this prayer of confession. Master, Savior, Shepherd, Messiah, we know you by many names, Lord. Your presence fills our lives. All that we are and all that we have comes from you. All that you do declares your love for us. Yet when trouble comes, when adversity plagues us, we wonder where you are. We even wonder who you are. How quickly we forget that you are always with us. Dispel our gloom and despair. Change our garments of darkness into robes of dazzling light. Spread your table before us and feed us from your hand. Lead us in the paths of righteousness, for it is in your name that we pray. Amen. Let us Creator, God, Father, Mother, in all the ways that you nurture us, we thank you and praise you for your mercies that are new this morning. We thank you for the grace that has been with us in these days, for this day, and for the grace that you will shower upon us as we move forward. We ask that your hand be with us, that you would make us courageous, that we may step out and serve in the spirit of Tabitha, in the spirit of Christ that lives and dwells with us, so that this world, hungry for your love, may be fed and be clothed and be dignified, because you have created us with such beauty. We pray these things in Jesus' name, who taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the love of God, Father, Son, and Spirit be with all those who go from this place, from now until forevermore. Amen.
It's probably a long
Yes. No, that's it.